The regular meeting of the Richmond Board of Education will come to order. Before we start our meeting this evening, I'd like to inform the board and our community that Bridget Shoeboy has submitted her resignation from the school board. She received a promotion in her present place of employment, and her hours will not work with her being on the board. So the board wishes her well and good luck in her future. We will be posting her position tomorrow, and it will be out for 2 weeks, and we'll see at that point how many people we have who'd like to be on our board. This time, please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Angela, if you could please read our mission statement.
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in the global community.
Thank you. Angela, roll call.
Mrs. LaShawn?
Here.
And Danielle is absent with notice. Mr. Simmons?
Here.
Mrs. Kelto? Here. And Mrs. Zuby? Here. And I am here. You have a form.
Thank you. Next is the approval of our agenda. I would like to add an action item, letter E, which will be for we need to seek a nomination for the secretarial position. So do I have a motion to approve the, what's the word? Thank you, revised agenda, or amended, thank you. Agenda.
I motion to approve the amended agenda to add action item E.
Support. Any support?
You should say action 13 to be accurate.
Action item 13.
Thank you. Do I have support?
Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for boy, I've been gone 1 month and I'm feeling like lost here. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion to approve the consent agenda as attached, as outlined in the attached documentation.
Do I have support?
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Walmsley?
We had 2 resignations since our last board meeting. Ashley Heath, our special education paraprofessional. Her last day was last Friday. And as you know, Christy Lashbrook's last day was last Friday. She's currently the director of student, or was the director of student support services. We had no terminations, no layoffs. We do have a child care new hire. I don't believe I saw her here, Amanda Walden. And then we have an appointment of Krista Fulp, who would be the credit recovery supervisor for our high school students that we run after second semester. There were no corrections on the January 24th meeting minutes. I had no questions regarding the claims and accounts.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion to go into closed session for a student discipline hearing.
Pursuant to Section 8B of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, and upon request of the student's parent and/or guardian, I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of conducting a hearing to consider the discipline of a student whose identity is known as student 021422-A.
Support. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will be going into closed session, and we will be returning when we're finished. We're back in session at 7:43. Mr. Walmsley, have a minute here for a bond update?
Not much to have there. We are still working on closing out Pbis items. The weight room equipment, I believe, is almost 100% installed. There's a couple items we're still waiting on. These panels have been going up around the new gym addition, as well as over by the culinary and the robotics entrance. And then the lettering on those buildings will go up next, and so forth. We are putting out to bid the summer 22 package that will actually go out on the street very soon, which is the paving work. And they will be starting the new varsity softball field within the next couple of weeks to start moving dirt and fencing to get that started.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to have an instructional spotlight on our career technical education with Ms. Area and Mr. Castle.
Well, good evening, everybody. February is CTE month, so we wanted to showcase all of the wonderful career and technical education programs that we have here at Richmond Community Schools. As you know, Michigan has these approved pathways. There they are. So some fun facts as I go into the CTE enrollment. Enrollment has nearly doubled over the past 6 years. Female students entering CTE programs has doubled in the past 6 years. We saw the trend go up last year, and as the numbers have officially doubled. And I thought this was very interesting. Out of 530 students currently enrolled at the high school, 237 of them participate in a CTE program. So almost half. We have some changes that are occurring with the Perkins and segments to competencies. This is a snapshot of competencies being rolled over. There were only a few of them that transferred over for this first school year. Business, EMT are part of our existing programs that are switching over this year. I know Ms. Michon will appreciate this. There will be no more gap analysis forms to fill out. The instructional design model will look very similar to this, and that's what we're going to have moving forward. As well as our new CTE programs, most of them have already transferred over to the competencies form. Some of them have, but then more will happen. It'll be about a 3-year transition. Part of the change is not just we're moving over from segments over to CTE competencies, but that a required credential is going to be a mandatory component for all CTE programs. Not saying that every single student has to pass that credential being offered, but that at least we have to offer them so that they have a better edge as they exit high school and can get a job in their field.
So it's my pleasure this evening to kind of introduce and do a brief overview of these CTE programs that we have here at Richmond High School. And we're lucky enough to have some of our instructors here with us. I believe Mr. Berg is here somewhere. Mr. Berg, stand up for us. Mr. Berg is here. He is our accounting 1 and 2 teacher, BMT, marketing 1, 2, and 3, all of which are 1-hour courses. He is our the first person you're going to see on most days when you come into school. His schoolroom is located right up in the very front of the school. He's in charge of running the school store, so he's in charge of all the snacks and the goodies that our students are selling. But more importantly, they're receiving the business skills that they need in those classes, the marketing skills and the interpersonal relationships that are built through business. So thank you very much, Mr. Berg. The next CTE teacher we have here is Chef Duran. Chef Duran is here as well. She's dressed for the job but getting no ideas tonight. She's done cooking, right?
Oh, I don't cook. I don't kid stuff. I just
Very good. Chef Duran runs our Culinary Arts program, so when you're in the building and you are smelling those delicious smells that seem to permeate our hallways more and more recently, that is Chef Duran in her class. She has 2 2-hour blocks as well as 1 1-hour block. The students are learning the very basics of school culinary safety, how to behave and take care of yourselves with those knives, and then getting into the cooking, and then very soon the opening of the Blue Devil Cafe. So we'll hopefully very soon be open for some food, and I know all the staff are very excited because we smell it and it's very hard to resist. So thank you very much, Chef Grant. I don't believe Mrs. Glanville is in attendance tonight. Mrs. Glanville runs our EMT program across the street with our Richmond Lennox EMS, and as you can see here from our pictures, she teaches our students life-saving skills. So they're over there learning the very basics, then more advanced of some life-saving techniques. the CPR, and other EMT procedures. And then when our students graduate from there, they have the opportunity to become a fully licensed EMT. So, very great program we have here. Mrs. Hurd, I don't believe Mrs. Hurd is in attendance tonight either. She is our instructor for our criminal justice class. Criminal justice is a 2-hour block that's run here in the afternoon. And we are very lucky to have Mrs. Hurd here, who is a retired FBI agent. So she brings with us a wealth of knowledge. Students in there are learning the very introductory basics of law enforcement, and then the background of some of the law cases, and then moving more in depth into the legal system as they move throughout the year. Mr. Olson's here, Mr. Ted Olson. Mr. Olson runs our AIS heavy equipment operations, repair, and maintenance. He gets up real early in the morning. So Mr. Olson's class is a 0 hour, so bright and early. He's one of the first ones up in Richmond. So he runs a 2-hour block that is 0 and 1, and then another block that is 2 or 3 for our students. Taking students from Armada as well as Richmond, and I should also mention that our Culinary Arts programs welcome students from New Haven to come over as well. So in Mr. Olson's class, we've got students that are getting very hands-on training, working on these big, super expensive machines. It's very rare that high school students are given the opportunity to work on $250,000, $500,000, and $600,000 machines. And Mr. Olson is a very brave and attentive man for letting our students work on those machines. So thank you very much, Mr. Olson. Next, we have Mr. Robbins, the gentleman behind the camera there. Mr. Robbins runs our TV and broadcast media class here. This is a 2-year completer. It's a 1-hour class run during 5th hour during the afternoon. They're on the very techie side. So you walk into Mr. Robbins' class and they start with the basics of how to set up shoots, how to work the equipment, and by this time of the year, they're zooming in on the more specific parts of the shots. And you'll see him and the students at most of the Richmond events. They're a lot of times behind the camera and behind the scenes, but a lot of the good work you see on Richmond TV is due to Mr. Robbins and what he's teaching his students. So thank you, Mr. Robbins.
We have some exciting news here. We have partnered with Dick Hubar of Richmond to be able to proudly present Automotive Technician for 11th and 12th graders. It is one of the new classes in the course catalog, so hopefully approval. We have also partnered here with teachers in our wonderful, all of our schools, our elementary, our middle school, and high school to be a part of our advisory for teacher cadet program, known as Introductory Education and the Educational Experiential class. And we are also going to be offering computer programming and video game design. That is going to be the pathway for our students for computer science. It will also include master coding. So some very exciting new additions to our CTE team. The applications have officially been submitted to the state.
So now is one of the favorite times of the school year for me, where we get to really honor our students. Every year, each school in Macomb County nominates 2 students based on teacher recommendations for the CTE Students of the Year, as well as a Staff Member of the Year. And our 2 students are both here tonight. We're going to start with Logan Spence. So Logan, can you stand up, please? So Logan is one of our CTE Students of the Year, who's a senior who's excelled in many CTE courses over his 4 years. Logan has taken criminal justice and is currently enrolled in EMT and business marketing technology and has never received a grade of lower than an A in any CTE course. His teachers say that Logan is always enthusiastic and engaged in class. He's very helpful to his classmates, hardworking, dependable, and responsible. Upon graduation, Logan plans on going into the healthcare field as an EMT. Congratulations, Logan. Next, we have Joseph Parinello. Joseph, please stand up. Joseph is also a senior taking our AIS heavy equipment course. Joseph is an extraordinary student, actively participating in class and often asking in-depth questions that extend his and other students' learning. His instructor stated that his positive attitude is infectious and that he has a positive influence on every other student in his class. In addition to his stellar academic performance, Joseph is also currently serving on the AIS Advisory Board as a student representative. So Joseph is not only in the class, but he's helping plan for the future of students in this class at Richmond High School. After graduation, Joseph plans on attending post-secondary training for a career in the skilled trades, possibly as an electrician. Congratulations. We'd now like to celebrate our CTE Staff Member of the Year. And that again is the man behind the camera back there, Mr. Jason Robbins. Mr. Robbins and Richmond TV are an integral part of our students and staff at Richmond High School. In addition to working in class at Richmond TV, he's also served as a tie between the school district and the Richmond community. While serving as an instructor, Jason takes a hands-on approach, often actively participating in the production and setting examples for his students. Outside of the classroom, Jason and Richmond TV are often the conduit to the community, recording district events for the broadcast for those who are unable to attend. Richmond Community Schools would like to thank Mr. Jason Robbins at Richmond TV for all your efforts in making both our students and community of Richmond the best that they can be. Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you guys very much. Our next item on our agenda is the Instruction Spotlight, which is the benchmark assessment reports.
Under the new law, Section 98B, all schools are supposed to report on their goal progress reports. It is the first one is going to be presented on the first board meeting in February and no later than the last day of school. We are required to have mid-year reading goals, mid-year mathematics goals, end-of-year reading goals, and end-of-year mathematics goals. By the middle and the end of the 21-22 school year, each school and the district will show growth in reading ELA achievement throughout the global pandemic as measured on NWEA math growth for grade K-8 and local assessments for grade 9 through 12. Same goal applies for the mathematics. By the end of the 21-22 school year, each school in the district will show growth in mathematics achievement throughout the global pandemic as measured on the NWA math growth for K-8 and local assessments for grade 9 through 12. For Lee Elementary,
Ms. Sarah, you have the reports in your packet that she's reporting. We have to report it by demographic group and
so by the first board meeting in February 2022, we are going to report on our fall scores. All students had an overall RIT score of 165 in reading, 169 in math. Economically disadvantaged students, 165, mathematics 169, special education populations 158, mathematics 162, female students 166, math 169, male students 163, math students 168, white students 165, math 169. Kindergarten, our reading overall RIT was 139, math 144. Grade 1, 155, math 161. Grade 2, 175, 179 in math. Grade 3, 191, math 191. Fully in person, overall 165, and math 169. I do not get to report on our English language learners or our other ethnicities due to them being subgroups lower than 30 at those schools, and due to FERPA violations, I cannot report those.
Same thing with virtual. We have less than 30 kids at the elementary level.
For Richmond Middle School, all students had the overall RIT score of reading 206, math 210, economically disadvantaged 202, math 206, special education 184, math 191, female students 208, math 211, male 204, math 211. White students, 207, math, 212. Hispanic Latino, 199, math, 205. Grade 4, an overall RIT score in reading, 196, math, 196. Grade 5, 201 in reading and 203 in math. Grade 6, 209, and in math, 213. Grade 7, 211, math, 219. And grade 8, 214, 221 in math. Fully in person, reading 208, and math, 210. And our high school. Richmond High School is utilizing NWA math growth as the local assessment to monitor the academic progress of students in 9th through 12th grade. During the fall benchmark, students in grade 9 through 12 scored an average RIT of 207 in reading and ELA and an average RIT of 221 in mathematics. Economically disadvantaged students scored an average RIT of 205 in reading and 219 in mathematics. Special education students scored an average RIT of 196 in reading and 203 in mathematics. Female students scored an average RIT of 214 and 224 in math. Male students scored an average RIT of 202 in reading and 219 in mathematics. White students scored an average RIT of 206 in reading and 222 in mathematics. In grade 9, students scored an average RIT of 214 in reading and 221 in mathematics. In grade 10, students scored an average RIT of 213 in reading and 225 in math. In grade 11, students scored an average RIT of 202 in reading and 221 in math. In grade 12, students scored an average RIT of 198 in reading and 221 in mathematics.
Are you going to do the second part we talked about?
This one?
Yeah. All right, can you hold on a minute? This is a prime example of local control being taken away from public schools. This is a law that was passed by our legislators that said we have to stand up here and read numbers to our public that mean absolutely nothing. So, again, it's what we've been saying, Lansing needs to get out of the hands of local school districts. So, with that, I asked Ms. Era to put together, well, what does all of this mean? How are you doing? How are we doing as a group? Which we don't have to report. We just have to report the number. So, I'll turn it over.
Yeah. So by the end of June, I'll be able to show the actual report of the overall RIT of all of those subgroups. But I did go ahead and look at the how we're doing so far. So I took our fall numbers, I took our winter numbers in both math and reading, and in every single grade in math and in reading, the overall RIT score has improved. There is not one grade that has gone down or stayed the same. Every single one, and we can take this pass along, has made so far overall RIT growth in every single grade, every single subsection.
Huge.
Would you speak to the one grade level, third grade as compared to the county?
Yes. So during our county meetings, they go into presentations regarding how we all do compared to each other. And what was interesting were, you see certain colors, except for when I scroll down, you're squinting on the Zoom, and you see Richmond, and then you see third grade, and it's a totally different color. And there's no other county that has that color. And it happens to be our third grade team in reading that our projected growth is higher than anybody else's in the county.
We're the only ones that showed increase.
Which includes the school down the road.
That's right.
Thank you.
And we have good news in all the grade levels. That in particular, when you see 21 school districts and they all are orange and red going the other way, and Richmond is 17 points going in the right direction, it speaks volumes to our staff and what we have going on here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next presentation is again Instruction Spotlight on the Multi-Tiered System of Support, MTS, or MTSS.
All right. So, MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. It is a framework that many schools use to provide targeted support to struggling students. MTSS focuses on the whole child. This supports academic growth as well as behavior, social, emotional, mental health, and absenteeism. You're going to see a lot of pyramids, and so I kind of wanted to explain what those kind of mean. Typically, your base of your pyramids is your Tier 1 instruction or your Tier 1 support. It's a coherent, viable core curriculum that all students receive. Tier 2 is immediate and targeted interventions, systematically applied and monitored for any students who are struggling. And Tier 3 tends to be your top of your pyramid. It's intensive interventions focusing on closing the gaps. Some changes that have been made. We've been looking at MTSS process as far as K-8 instruction. So we have been utilizing the Ames Web tool. This has been a wonderful new addition to the MTSS process. We have monthly meetings that I have with our intervention specialists where we get to look into our data to ask the most important question, which is, are our interventions working? And if not, then we need to change them and be systematic about what we're doing and share those ideas and have a very objective approach to the interventions that we are providing for students. Been planning some things with grades as far as looking at the grade level span, separating them by ability and helping plan for those interventions to be able to target what students specifically need. And then of course aligning specific evidence-based intervention programs. So some of the things that we've been utilizing, here's a snapshot of Ames Web. It is not Richmond's data, it's like a screenshot from Google, so no worries there. But it's able to show us our national norm comparisons so that we can properly say who should be getting what kind of tiered interventions. So it's really some great data. I also brought in Pbis Mathematics, which is a top-of-the-line mathematics intervention for our K-8 students, and brought in the Teaching Reading Sourcebook, which provides us with the core phonics survey, which is a very systematic approach to explicit phonics. All right, I'm going to invite our three wonderful Dean of Students up here to the podium to talk about what they do for the behavior portion of the MTSS at each of the schools.
Good evening. So we promote positive behavior in the building a lot. Starting with our Pbis Assemblies. Students attend monthly moral focus assemblies discussing what positive behavior should look like. Many students participate and contribute to the discussions that take place in the cafeteria, and they're centered around our monthly moral focus virtues. 2 students from each classroom are chosen by the teachers for the True Blue Award each month, and students are selected for doing a great job practicing that virtue that is being discussed that month and are recognized at this assembly. For example, we've been talking about kindness, thankfulness, respect, wisdom, and honesty. And this month we'll be talking about leadership. So next Friday, I'll talk to them about the qualities of what a good leader and what that should represent. And then the teachers will then talk about what a good, or pick a couple of good leaders in their classroom, and they'll get that True Blue Award. We also have blue tickets that we pass out to students throughout the day on a daily basis for their positive behavior. These can be handed out by all staff members. When a student is caught doing something good, or maybe even just following directions in class, a teacher will give them a blue ticket. The tickets are turned in on Thursday every week, and every Friday, 2 students from each grade level are called down to the office during announcements to recognize for this awesome behavior. Students will either get to pick out of a prize bin, or maybe have popsicles with the principal, or lately hot chocolate has felt more appropriate. For Tier 1 supports that we offer, we ask our teachers to greet their students at the door in order to start the day off with a positive attitude and a positive interaction and build those positive relationships with their students. And it's so important to have that smile on your teacher's face when you walk in, because some students coming in may not be having the best time. So having that positive interaction and seeing a smiling teacher as they're greeted at the door, we think is super important. As we all know, maintaining great communication with our parents is very important, and we want them to recognize that they are an important part of their child's education. Parent-teacher conferences are scheduled and held twice a year to update parents about not only the academic side of their child's education, but their behavioral progress as well. Restorative justice is used in every classroom, building-wide, to help our students reflect and learn from their mistakes. We want students to be able to learn from their mistakes and discuss the impact that their choices can have on not only them, but their classmates as well. At this tier, attendance rewards are given. So we just rewarded 3 students last month for perfect attendance up to this point of the year, and we'll be doing that monthly from this point forward. Our Tier 2 supports, we offer small group social work support to address such issues as divorce, friendship, grief, behavior, and organizational and social skills. Students are pulled from class to work with our social worker and when it is requested by parents or deemed necessary by staff members. The social worker in our building works with both groups of students and individuals to identify their needs and ensure their educational success. Attendance letters at this tier are sent home to Tier 2 students. Phone calls for attendance concerns we've made to parents, when they reach 5, 7, and 10 absences. We just like to make sure that we're keeping up with their attendance and making sure they're arriving on time at this tier. We also have the CARE program that was recently introduced to the district. So any families or students from Tier 1 to Tier 3, they can be referred to this new CARE program that was recently introduced. And this program provides additional support and counseling to families who may need assistance. And I will say, recently we've had several families utilize this and call me in my office, and we've been able to help them out in that aspect. More Tier 2 supports, teachers develop behavior plans for students who are having difficulty in the classroom from a behavioral standpoint. These plans are communicated with parents who at this point should be fully aware of the concerns and behaviors. The teacher may also try alternative seating in the classroom for students who are in this category. Open communication, again, is so important with parents during this process, and a conference may also be requested. If teachers feel that students need additional support academically and behaviorally, they can request a child study. A meeting is then scheduled with the teacher consultant to discuss the individual. For a child study to move forward, multiple samples of data are collected by the teacher over time and they are examined. Additional educational support may be provided to the student if it's deemed necessary by the staff, such as Title I services or TC support. Restorative justice at this level, students may come down and meet with me just to discuss their behavior. I'll begin working with them and their parents to discuss their behavior and how we can move forward successfully. And then at Tier 3, a behavior intervention plan will be requested by the school in collaboration with the parents. A meeting is then scheduled with the parents, where the classroom teacher, social worker, teacher consultant, and dean of students will work together on this plan. The ultimate goal at this point is to put interventions in place that are going to help the student move forward successfully in the classroom and with their peers. The school social worker supports Tier 3 students with group or individual support, and paraprofessional support is also given to students in this category, such as sensory room time. So if a student just needs that 5 minutes break period in a classroom where they're just overloaded and they just need that time out of the classroom, that parapro will be able to take them out of the room and just give them that little break that they need so they can go back and succeed academically in the classroom. The child study process may reveal that a Tier 3 student needs a 504 plan or an IEP. The staff will work together with families to make sure that those plans and accommodations are put into place. And at this tier, wellness checks for poor attendance are conducted by our school liaison officer. So if we are really becoming concerned with truancy and we need to start working on talking to a truant officer, we will call our liaison officer and let her know that we might want to do a wellness check on this individual due to their attendance at school.
So I'm lucky enough to follow Mr. Gibson, believe it or not. Good practices are pretty common throughout our district. So a lot of the same behavioral techniques that Mr. Gibson mentioned at the elementary are also taking place in the middle school. So I'll highlight some of those, and it all starts with building those positive positive relationships with our building staff. We expect our staff to be in the hallway. We expect them to form those relationships with students, and we hit in just about every single PD. It's minimally on our agenda, but we talk about it in just about every PD, how important it is to form those relationships with students, as that's what is going to help with those supports. Our social workers and counselor at the middle school, we also have the ability to use our counselor, are both used to help with support at the Tier 1's level as needed as students, but so they're available to everyone.
We also have made use of advisory. So at the middle school, we run an advisory period on Fridays. We shorten every period a little bit, so we have a little bit of extra time at the end of the day on Fridays. So we can use that time to target specific lessons. Sometimes they're academic in nature. Sometimes there are things that we have to go through, like at the beginning of the year, making sure the students know how to use the computers and all. But as we move through the year, we also target very specific lessons to help with our behavior issues that we're seeing within the school. In October, we get anti-bullying month. We do anti-bullying lessons, food allergy relationships, and making sure that students are aware of how other students might feel or what's happening. We talk about character development through some of our lessons, coping skills, and as I said, study skills and grade reflections, because having a strong behavioral performance can help with academic performance as well, so we're looking at that. We also have our Pbis program. We call ours SHINE. As you can see on the side, so, each letter in SHINE stands for different qualities that we look for, and we report those out on our standards-based grading as well. That's one of the things that we're very proud of at the middle school. It helps both academically and behaviorally, because we can, for behavior, specifically report to parents how they're doing as self-directed learners, working on homework, integrity, if they're being neighborly with others, or if they're engaged in class. We have recess for grades 4 through 8. That's not common in a lot of middle schools. They do to have recess for 8th graders to have that time to get outside. Really helps with some of those behavior issues, just to get some of that energy out. And extra recess for grades 4 and 5. This year we also started what's called Suite 360. It is a social emotional learning program that's built on the Castle learning skills. So this is very specifically to help some of those needs that we've seen arise because of COVID and some of the other areas that have come up, mental health. How do we help students through this? But what we've really been able to do, it gives us baseline data that we're able to then look at and target in our advisory lessons some of those very specific skills that we're looking at, like the coping skills and character development, friendship. We're able to narrow that down. Calm Classroom was donated to we've had several teachers go through the training at the ISD and bring that back, but we've also had supplies and books donated to the middle school, so many of our classrooms follow the Calm Classroom. We also follow restorative justice practices, both in the classroom and at the office. As you might have seen on Facebook, this month is Kindness Month. We got random acts of kindness happening, signs all throughout the school. We have our web program, which is a program that helps our 4th graders as they transition in there by pairing them up with 8th graders. So pairing those two together and talking specifically about that. We also have attendance rewards that we go, perfect attendance throughout the end of the year. There's guidelines within our student handbook that do that, and we have the care process in place as well. As we move forward to those Tier 2 supports, we have parent-teacher conferences that are scheduled or administration scheduled for specific student behaviors. These aren't the ones that everyone has. Those would fall under Tier 1. But if we're seeing specific in those targeted student areas where we have issues with a few students, that we will schedule those conferences with parents. We will look at behavior plans. They start in the classroom, usually if we have in a specific classroom problem, but if we're seeing that is beyond the classroom, we'll do administration-created one. Our social workers will have individual support and small group support at this level, and same with the counselor. We have a peer-to-peer program, which matches people up as well. And we have our SHINE winners, our Pbis winners. Their tickets are drawn each week. So we're taking that good behavior that we're seeing, we're in those good for doing and rewarded for doing those good behaviors. And we do random drawings, so we're rewarding that top tier as well. The Social Emotional Learning Suite 360, we can do small class group lessons and small group lessons as well. If the social worker knows she has a group of students that have a specific behavior area that we need to work at, that's something that we can pull out, or we can also do it if we're seeing at a particular grade level or class. Attendance letters, we send out attendance letters. As we know, attendance is linked to academic and behavior. So as students are missing more and more days, we'll send notifications so that parents are aware. Most of the parents are aware of where we're at, but this keeps everyone informed. And then care referrals. As we move into those tier 3 supports, it's many of the same things we talked about, but it becomes more targeted. So now we're talking about behavior intervention plans. Social worker will do peer-to-peer mediation, scheduled individual supports, scheduled group support. So now we're talking about a more intensive time where it's scheduled more regularly, paraprofessional support depending on the individuals. Evaluation and modification of the learning environment. So these tier 3 supports become very specific to the behaviors and the students that we have in front of us. So usually it goes through our child study process, which is on there. We'll try to narrow down what is the specific cause so that we can really target that individual. We also have for the higher end, our SHINE winners. We have the Shining Stars of the Month. So this is similar to a Student of the Month program, except for it's not academic. It's based on our SHINE behaviors. So those winners are recognized monthly, and then Mr. Bartels and I will recognize them with some sort of celebration by the end of the year. Risk assessment evaluations so that we can actually require some students to attend, depending on the behaviors that are taking place. We also will make use of those attendance welfare checks by the district liaison officer, and in some cases we will refer to care, but also mandate that they attend care depending on the actual incident that's taking place.
Mr. Bergmeyer, can I just ask a question? What is the calm classroom that you refer to? What is that exactly?
So the calm classroom is almost meditation type setting. It's a training that the ISD does, but it helps prepare students to learn through meditation and calming techniques. So before they begin the hour, they might start with a little gong or bell or chime that will help. Kind of like the calm commercials that you see, do nothing for the next 30 seconds, but it helps the students clear their minds, calm down. They might have soothing music. There's different techniques for different days and what they're doing, so the students learn the basis of those techniques, and then the teachers will say, okay, we're going to enact this now before we do a test, or to help the students relax.
And we got that training from the ISD, and everybody's been trained at the middle school?
So we had individual teachers go through the training at the ISD and become teacher trainers to come back and share with our staff.
So are we doing it, or is this?
We are doing it, yes.
We are doing it, okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Good evening. Kind of to piggyback off of what the other two deans said, it's a very systematic approach through the organization. So you're going to see a lot of repetitive things. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. The Tier 1, which are the universal supports, we have our Pbis program. Obviously, we're always working on cultivating those positive relationships in and outside of the classroom. Proactive attendance incentives that we're doing with our students. I believe we've given 2 or 3 already. Classroom expectations and school-wide expectations, which we review with our students on a regular basis in our daily announcements. If we see a problem, we obviously revisit it as the year goes on as well. Restorative justice practices utilized in and out of the classroom when needed. This is one that's new to our building this year, Every Mind Matters. Mrs. Hercula and Mrs. Laratonda started a program with their students after school. They meet bi-weekly. It's to help our students with any stress, mental health strategies, tips. They made stress balls, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. So they're working with small groups of students. It is open to everyone, though, so any students who are interested. and social work and counseling services provided at the universal level. Tier 2 supports, we have our Macomb Family Service programs that we use. We work with large groups providing supports to students and families. Social work, individual and small group. Mrs. Laratana meets with a variety of students on a variety of reasons. Attendance letters, as the other two deans mentioned, are sent out in a systematic way. Behavior contracts, classroom teacher, social work, and administration. So there's a variety of levels in which behavior contracts might be implemented. It might be done by the teacher, and it can be done by other various stakeholders. Student study teams, meetings, care information provided more in a general way as opposed to a targeted way, and then code blue winners and social media recognition, which we're utilizing often. The tier 3, which is the intensive individual interventions that we use with our students, as mentioned prior, the behavior plan or the BIP, done by our social worker and administration or in combination. Social work and administration, our peer mediation skills are utilized to work with our students who may have a conflict, and also conflict resolution skills. The support staff utilization, obviously we use our support staff for a variety of reasons if we see a need for students. Attendance team meetings, for second semester we're starting these on a bi-weekly basis where Mrs. Ferrani, as we all know, she knows everything, so she helps with that, and also with Mrs. Laratana, Ms. Luback, and myself, and Mr. Castle at times. The student study team meetings, also wellness checks done by administration. We've also utilized our liaison officer, Officer Davenport, who's been a huge help in going out into the homes to see if there's a need and something that we can help the families with. Risk assessments have been done, care referrals more on a targeted level for intensive for that specific student. Macomb Family Services, targeted interventions as well. Weekly check-ins on certain students for behavior and maybe work completion. Self-monitoring forms used by social worker, collaboration with outside stakeholders, and mentoring and teaching social skills. Questions?
Yep.
All right.
The behavior contracts, are parents involved with that, or when you say teachers, just between the teacher and the student?
Sometimes a very, very informal thing. They might create like an incentive for the student. I would say if it's more on a behavior that we're trying to remedy, the teacher and the parent would be involved, and most likely myself. I would at least know the conversation.
Okay. And the student study team meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Give me just an example of how we're doing that.
So what would happen is Ms. Leapak, myself, Mrs. Laratanda, and now with our attendance program and systematic plan, what we're doing is we're pulling data on our attendance, we're pulling data maybe on behavioral issues, and we're meeting and looking at ways to, maybe things that are flagging the most, what behaviors are we seeing most often, and then what we're looking to do is to try to find a way to maybe mediate that.
And so,
and then on the tier 3 end, what you would do is specifically with that student.
And then the parent is involved in what, once the staff figures what we're doing.
Yeah. And then we come up with a plan, and then we would communicate that with, obviously, the rest of our teachers, with the student, and with the parent.
Okay. And are we doing it? I mean, are we having success with it? I like the idea.
Yeah, I think now, I will say that I think we have a more systematic approach, so I think we're going to see more success with it, tying that attendance piece in with the behaviors at the same time.
Okay, thanks.
I will now invite our principals up
Wait,
to...
I think...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I have one question for Mr. Gibson. Sorry. For Tier 3, Title I is not listed. Do they participate in Title I services? Tier 3?
Yeah.
Okay, it just wasn't listed on here. I just wanted to... That's all. Thank you.
It probably will come in the next
It
part
will.
in the academics part. It
Yes.
comes with height, sorry.
Yes, title will appear for the academic portion, so I will invite our principals up to discuss the academic MTSS process that we have going on at each of the buildings, starting with Lee Elementary.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to speak a little bit on the academic portion. I'm really glad we started with the behavioral piece because, as we know, it's really hard to get students in the classroom learning if the other things kind of aren't taken care of or taking note of. So I just like how we kind of have shown that it's kind of behavior, social, emotional first, making sure that the whole student is taken care of, and then we can get into the learning. For our Tier 1 at Lee Elementary, we have a few main focuses. The first one is the high quality instruction that we're giving every day. So our PDs, we've had 4 so far, getting ready to have number 5, I believe. Number 4 is been centered around best teaching practices. Because of the Tier 1, this is our universal platform that all students get every day from their teachers. And so as we know, the instruction needs to be high quality in order for those students to be performing at grade level. So we really focus on the intentionality also of the training and the PD for staff. 3rd grade is currently attending math training as a whole grade level right now to increase their skills. So it's really, I think, we're very intentional about what teachers are getting for their future training to be able to then give our students what they need. The other thing with Ms. Ara's help, this has really been something that we've been able to focus more on is research-based curriculum, making sure that what's in front of our kids is working, that our core curriculum at our Tier 1 is research-based and working for our students. Then when you go to Tier 2, it's more of the targeted small group interventions in the classroom. At Lee Elementary, we have a non-negotiable that guided reading, for instance, happens every single day. Now, what kids are within that group is dependent upon maybe deficiencies or skills that are needed and things like that. So maybe one particular student needs to be in that guided reading group every day, whereas another student may not particularly need that small group intervention. We have a literacy library that's been purchased by the district a few years back that is literacy at every child's level. So that's another layer of support. So not every student is all getting the same thing, they're getting what they need. Para support is in there a little bit, primarily for behavior, but we do expect that the teacher is involved in the Tier 2 process. When you start to look at Tier 3, the more intensive, we have an interventionist program, Title I you can call it, or our interventionist, Ms. McCoy, who's newly added to that position. And we've been using the Ames Web program to really use data to drive these decisions. So I think that's something that I'm most proud of, seeing happening a bit more, is that we're using data and not any assumptions about what our students' needs are. And so you had asked about Title I, so I just wanted to, it probably needs to move up to that Tier 3, but that is happening for our students. What I really think is powerful about the tiered system in the district and at Lee as well is it's very fluid. So if a student is in the Tier 3 intervention, it doesn't mean that they have to stay there, and really the hope is that they don't. So we have to remember that there's a purpose with this, that it's not just, okay, you're at Tier 3, this is what you're receiving, but is it working, and how can we get you to a Tier 1, and is that working? And so when we have kids sitting in the same tier for quite some time, we have to then ask ourselves, is it working? Is what we're doing working? So just the end goal in mind is that, you know, they're back performing at grade level or above. Any questions?
All right, at the middle school, I want to piggyback on what Ms. Mangoni said, that what the deans talked about earlier is that, you know, for the academics and the success of our students on the academic end, that one tier, one side of the triangle, if you will, the behavior and the environment and the sense of belonging is crucial for us to perform at the level that we need to. At the middle school, we offer several Tier 3 support classes. One is, and it's not often looked at, but it is our advanced math track starting in 7th grade for our upper level math students. Math intro, which is offered in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and that is pre-teaching. It's an extra math student or math class for our students that struggle. Text analysis is our reading intervention for teaching informational text and reading strategies. Academic support class, study skills. and a resource room, ELA, and mathematics. So these are our intensive Tier 3 support classes. Now, our Tier 3 intensive academic supports would be our Title I program, which is both push-in and pull-out depending on the level of need for our students. And this year with using our Ames Web weekly monitoring every Friday to see where our kids are, our kids can flow between the different tiers within the program based on what they need. Our child study process, Ms. Moore talked about the behavioral end of it. The child study process is where students will be referred to our team, which is Ms. Clausen, our counselor, Ms. May, Ms. Wazinski, better known as Ms. W, and myself, and they're referred by teachers, and then we have follow-up, and it goes back and forth between us and teachers, and we talk about students and how we can give them the support they need before we look at 504 or special ed services. Then, of course, we have the inclusion of what we get from the ISD. Some of it, like our occupational therapist, is through the ISD and the consultative services. We have speech and language teacher, our paraprofessionals that help with both behavioral and academic, and of course, Ms. W, our social work. IEP goals is a Tier 3 academic support, which is above and beyond their goals for their classroom that they're attending in ELA or mathematics. Bottom 30% focus. And then our Tier 2 academic supports, we don't have any Tier 2 classes, but our supports are reading, small groups within the classroom, our level reading, where teachers strategically group their students based on their reading levels. TC service, that's through our special education program, where that TC is teacher consultant, where our teacher consultant has a group of students that they're not pulled out for their ELA or their math, but they need support in ELA and math and their other subjects as well, and they can be either direct or consultative, and direct means they go and see and pull them out, talk to them, and then consultative where they go in and observe them. Computer assisted instruction, that's leveled depending on where our kids are again. Will be assigned assignments, reading based on their reading level, where they're at in mathematics and struggling, and so on and so forth. Title I is also Tier 2. It's like push-in instead of the pull-out. Counseling, academic support, one-on-one with our counselor. It's pull-out. Peer tutoring is an academic support we offer. And then our Tier 1, which is what we do every day, is we ask our teachers to differentiate. So regardless of what support you need, based on our students in front of you, we need to differentiate our instruction to meet the diverse learning styles of every student in front of us. CITW strategies, it's been a focus for several years now, and our goal is to have all our teachers CITW certified or trained in, and Ms. Era and I are working on our list for those next year that were hired before we can sign them up to make sure that next year hitting the ground and barring anybody new, we'll have everybody trained. One-to-one laptops is a luxury that we get, that every student has to help aid and support their learning. Schoology is the platform for that one-to-one device for support. Our sustained silent reading that we do every day. Parent-teacher conferences scheduled twice a year, but we also have academic conferences where teachers will call for a meeting. I sit on a lot of those depending on the request based on how we can support students. Office 365, that's where we use our OneDrive, our email, to save documents, send documents in the form of communication, Microsoft Teams, and so on and so forth, for all of our students to support their learning each and every day. Advisory skill building through academics, whether that be study skills, how to study for tests, things like that. Standard-based grading, standard mastery is the most important thing that we do, is breaking down those standards, understanding specifically what those standards are, and then comes to how we teach those standards and assess them and make sure that we got our message across. Oh, and data analysis. Should have known that was there. Data analysis, we can't be the only ones looking at data. Teachers, administrators, support staff cannot be the only ones looking at data. Our students have to look at it, have to understand it, know where they're at with their report cards, knowing where they're at with their NWA, PSAT tests, and to look at the data, the specific data, especially when it goes to a standard. You know, these are what I need to work on to get better in my career.
Any other questions?
Yes. For the classroom instruction that works, we have new people, and you said they were hired before we could get them signed up.
Right.
So the ISD only offers it at a certain point of the year.
Part of the problem is we haven't had subs all year.
Okay.
So if we're going to do it during the school, you know, but we hate having teachers away from their students. So that was one part of the problem, is we didn't have enough subs. So with the changing in the quarantining rules and all of that, we're just now getting, I don't want to jinx it, but back closer to normal. And so all of the outside PD was put on hold for a while. So yeah, when you hire a science teacher in November, most of it's, you know, and we don't want to take them out of school, so the only ones that are going to be offered are in the summer.
Okay, so actually it wasn't, they were hired before we could get them signed up, it had to do with COVID.
Well, no, a teacher left and we didn't have a position.
So if they don't get the training, how are they doing that stuff in their classroom like everybody else?
Well, a lot of teachers we had 2 teachers that we hired from Virginia were trained in all of the strategies. It just wasn't called CITW strategies. So they know the strategies, but they don't know it specifically as Marzano's CITW strategies. So the lingo might be a little bit different, but they're doing the same thing. But we want a constant, consistent vocabulary.
Right.
So even though they're doing it and they understand it, we want them to have the official training.
And during your DPD days, you will go into the instructional piece, domain 3.
Right, which we already have. CITW is talked about at all our meetings.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yep.
How does peer tutoring work?
That's through our Junior Honor Society, but it's also during lunch when kids will be signed up with that ask for help, and we have kids sign up that they're willing to help. Similar to peer-to-peer, but it's more academic.
Thank you.
Yep.
So at Richmond High School, we share many of the same MTSS strategies that they do at the middle school more than at Lee Elementary. But we're going to start vague and then kind of narrow in. So some of our Tier 1 academic supports there are our strong core curriculum, which we examine every year continuously. Specifically at the beginning of the year, in our first PD, we really looked at the curriculum that we're going to lay out for the year. This is always an ongoing conversation. Nothing that we can be stagnant about. We're constantly looking at our curriculum, making sure that we're hitting our power standards and reevaluating that every semester, if not every year. I'm sorry, every year, if not semester. We have a culture of professional learning. Our PDs, there's absolutely not one wasted minute or second in our PDs. We are down to the minute making sure we utilize every second to implement what we want in our strong curriculum. We differentiate instruction. When Ms. Borwick and I are in our observations, one of the things that we talk about quite a bit in our post-observation and pre-observations is making sure that we're differentiating our instruction. It's not just the sit and get. It's not just a traditional one-size-fits-all. We know our students and we're making sure that we differentiate our instruction. We have before and after school assistance. Our school technically opens to the kids at 7:20. Many of them are at the door at 7:10 and itching to get in earlier than that because they know that there's staff members here that are waiting for them to come in. You come here at 5, 6 o'clock at night. There are often teachers with their doors open helping students on a daily basis. Again, like Mr. Bartel said, all of our trained staff that's been here has been CITW trained, and we're in the process of getting our new ones signed up so they can be CITW trained as well. Making sure that we're going back and scaffolding on prior knowledge we found to be very important, especially in some of our cores, even more important than ever over the last couple of years because we have had that non-traditional instructional time. So we're making sure going back and making sure that we know they learned what we thought they learned the prior year because we can't make any assumptions anymore because of the potential for lost instructional time. And then our test retakes after school as well. Moving on to our Tier 2, we offer accelerated courses because I think it's important to, sometimes we think of Tier 2 and Tier 3 as only remediation, but it's also important to look forward for our students that want to challenge themselves there. We have our honors and APs. They utilize advanced graphic organizers. We offer 504 plans that have extra time on them. We do offer quite a few extra courses for our students. It allows them to take courses like sign language and Mandarin Chinese and other courses that they wouldn't traditionally be able to take in a classroom in a school our size. We have our resource room. We really try to get our parents involved. One of the things that Ms. Borwick and I pride ourselves on is our constant communication with our parents and involving them and letting our parents know that their daughter or their son may be struggling. And even more important, having our staff make that communication. We've had 2 PDs this year where part of the time has been spent making that communication with our staff and logging that so that we have a record of who our staff has contacted, what the context of that conversation has been, and then the follow-up as well. Much like the middle school, we have peer tutoring. We have NHS peer tutoring as well. Dual enrollment programs for our students that want to challenge themselves outside of our traditional classroom here. And again, like our AP and honors courses for our students that want to challenge themselves. Moving on to our Tier 3, we have our special education support here in the high school, as well as our speech and language support and social worker support. Mrs. Laratanda does a wonderful job in working with our students, not only socially, emotionally, but also academically. And Ms. Lepak does the same thing, working with our students. A lot of people don't think of a counselor working with them necessarily academically, but one of the things that she does a great job is finding what the problem is and what the impediment is to our students' learning, and then trying to develop strategies to get through those. We have our special education IEP goals as well as our child study process like Mrs. Borwick talked about earlier, but now focusing more on academics as opposed to behavior and attendance. So at Richmond High School, again, getting more specific, we offer several Tier 3 support classes. We have Literacy for Life, Math Solutions, and Blue Crew. All 3 of these courses are designed to offer support to students who have struggled academically. These courses are designed to provide students with support in 2 core subjects, as well as the soft skills that encourage successful study habits and academic resiliency. We offer 2 Tier 2 academic supports and extension classes, and those are our SAT Prep for Math and SAT Prep for ELA. And these classes are designed to provide additional support for students that are at risk for not meeting the proficiency score that's expected in Math and ELA. And then looking forward, what does the future hold at Richmond High School? We've discussed quite a bit of time, Ms. Sarah and I, and Mr. Wong has been involved in the conversations as well as our teaching staff about the idea of an advisory or something similar to that, like they have in middle school, trying to provide time for those students to get that additional support. That class would be used to focus on Tier 1 and 2, goal setting, progress monitoring, focus instruction where it would be needed, but making sure that we have those students that are not falling through the cracks and getting to the point where they get to the Tier 3. We want to catch them at Tier 2 and kind of reverse those habits and those skills and get them back to a Tier 1 instruction.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our administrators and People just think we teach English, math, and whatever, but we do so much more in the classroom.
As Ms. Era prepares for the next one, I'd just like to thank the administrative team for presenting. My hope is that anybody listening tonight, it's unique to the individual student that is involved in whatever academic behavior. But my goal in this process is we walk out of here realizing that the professional staff we have in our building is dedicated, utilizes a team approach to providing systematic interventions both in academic and behavior. So we're really trying to figure out what every child needs and how do we serve them. The next item that we have is the course catalog. I asked Ms. Era to highlight, you have in your packet a very large document. There's a lot of, any changes are highlighted in yellow. Upon your approval on the 28th, this will then go live on the 29th for beginning to register for the 22-23 school year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Era.
So obviously we have a change of year on page 1. I'm going to just go over the pages with changes, just so
All 127 of them?
I'm not doing that. So I'm just doing the pages with the changes. You're welcome. Page 2 is going to be just the, obviously the change of personnel page. Page 3 are going to be the changes of all of the page numbers once all of this is finalized. You can see on page 4 the Richmond Middle School scheduling requirements and the changes there. And you can kind of get a glimpse at some of our new classes going to be offered that we will then go into. There was a change on page 5 that talks about our educational development plans, our EDPs, talking about how we really want to drive parents to our website for them to be able to log into the system that we use for Career Path Zello as a resource, and for them to be able to take a look at their own child's plan for those. And that verbiage is the same for middle school as well as high school. The changes from pages 7 to 10, you'll notice that on the new courses or the existing courses that were already board approved, we've added a segment that says whether the class is going to be offered virtually, yes or no. And I think that is a great addition as we're kind of in full. On page 10, there is a new addition, Honors English Language Arts Grade 8. This course is going to be designed to help prepare students with skills and strategies that will allow them to be successful in honors or advanced placement classes at the high school. Pages 11 through 21, the only thing that's there is if it's being offered virtually, the answer to those are yes. We have a location change on page 21. The animation studio was put in technology and it was put in STEAM, I think, but it belongs in technology. So we put it where it rightfully belongs on page 21. And this was the first year it ran, and it was a very big hit, by the way. So thank you for approving that.
Page doesn't have the law for numbers because the file that was saved is a little different than what she printed. So it's 23 that she's referring to.
Okay.
Sarah, can I do it from here? Can I do the changes?
Oh, yeah.
All right, the rest of the documents through the middle school are just referencing the virtual learning. When you get down to the section where it talks about STEAM, which is around page 38 in your packet, realize we're adding a 6th, 7th grade to continue the 4, 5, 6th, 7th grade STEAM option called STEAM Innovations. As you keep going through, you'll now hit this high school scheduling, which is on page 43, which again, as you Ms. Era referenced previously, clarifying language about the EDP process. We use Zello now rather than what we used to use. Page 47 is a minor. We have some allowable science-related courses that we're listing in the catalog. Again, just some minor changes there. Again, we continue identifying which courses will be offered virtually, realizing anybody who takes a virtual classroom may have assignments or assessments that are changed. Page 57 in your book, and 58, you'll see a lot of the changes, which is the Automotive Technician 1 and Automotive Technician 2, that we are a partnership with Dick Huvards. You'll actually see in there, continuing on page 60, is the computer program and video game development that Ms. Era and Mr. Castle spoke previously about. In page 61, you'll see the Introduction to Education and Education Exploration. This is the teacher cadet course. On page 62, there's additional language for clarify for those that are entering the EMT program, that due to the clinical component of this course, students may be required to show proof of vaccination. That was not in the course previously, that we would, to do that course, it's a requirement because that is considered a health facility. As you keep going, there's not a whole lot of changes other than when you get to the CTE courses that are offered at New Haven and Pankow, it's a recognition that some of the time in traveling to those classes, which is on page 68, is considered instructional time because it takes time to get to those classes, and that the total instructional minutes may be less for a student because of that travel need. The English 11 blended and English 12 blended are eliminated from the course catalog. They haven't run in a while. A new course on page 75, mythology for grades 11 and 12. You can see the short course description there. A lot of the courses that were added to this, as Ms. Era has previously mentioned, were a survey that she did with the students, and this is resulting in what they're looking for courses. When you get to the math section on page 80, there's many more math-related credits that are options for students, such as AIS, Automotive Tech 1 and 2, etc. So again, those that need a math-related course their 12th grade year have those options now available specifically. When you get to the science course section, which is on page 93, you'll see that last year we changed the course of our science in the path. This is just clarifying what grade levels take it. When we make a change to a course or a requirement, we start with the incoming grad class of 9th graders. Again, it's just clarifying going forward. And I believe all the rest are just virtual options. So I didn't mean to take your thunder, Miss Era, but I look at the time and...
No, you're fine. I've been up there for a long time.
That's it. That is the changes to the course catalog for the 22-23 school year. And I know I went through it very fast, so I apologize. If there are any questions, you're more than welcome to take them. Otherwise, this will give you 2 weeks to look at it. If something comes up in that 2 weeks, again, we'll have to bring it back and so forth. We're just very excited about the offers that we're going to be able to expand and offer to our students. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Wonder? Okay. For all your efforts towards
Yeah, she has been running a treadmill the last several months with all getting the ducks in a row, so I appreciate her effort and the administrative team for their constant review of this. So, thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is our 2022 general fund budget, amendment number 2.
As Ms. Shad comes up to the podium, board members, you should feel very proud about this budget from your work that has been done in the previous setting the tone in June. You have put in place a budget that has only gotten better each time we've had to come back to you. So
Mr. Wamsley passed up 2 documents to you. One is a 103-page line-by-line. Shows every account. We're not doing that. No, we're not. Instead, we're going to use the 12-page document that's entitled General Fund 21-22 budget proposed second amendment. And I will hit the highlights of that. Of course, if you have any questions, if you go through the line by line budget, I'll be happy to answer them for you. So at the top, you can see we have 3 columns. We have an original budget back in June of 21. We have a first amendment that we did last August, and then we're proposing a February amendment, a second amendment. At the top, we start with revenues. Our local revenues increased about $200,000, and that increases from actual local property tax revenue. We projected what it was, and now we know what the values are, so that's our actual, an increase for that. And then we did not budget anything for gate receipts, so we did add a budget for gate receipts under local revenues. Under state revenues, we went from 11.4 originally to 12.9 now. And state revenues, the increase was mostly from the foundation increase and the number of students per in our FTE that increased. We also added increased revenues for the CTE program and the GSRP program. We also received, as Renee explained at the last board meeting, a $20,000 CTE grant that is also considered a state revenue. Under federal revenues, we went from $2.2 million to $2.6 million. We had some grant revenue that was for expenses last year that we're recognizing this year, so that is now added to the budget. Our ESSER 2 revenue was originally estimated at $725,000. That's up to $778,000. We had some carryover, and then we added a new GSRP classroom, but now that is not funded by the state. That is funded with federal dollars, so that is an increase in federal sources, and that's about $135,000. The next line is inter-district sources, and that's most of that is the property tax, ISD-wide property tax revenue that the ISD collects and we receive from them, so it's considered an inter-district source. We also had a loss from our insurance. We had some water damage last August in our middle school, so we received some revenue from our insurance claim, about $116,000, and then we also have transportation revenue that is from transportation where we use our drivers that we employ to do runs for New Haven. So we pay them, and then we bill New Haven, so we have to include that revenue in the inter-district sources. You will see expenses that match that down in the transportation section. Any questions on that? Now move on to expenditures. Our first section is under basic programs elementary. You can see we've increased about $133,000 from the first amendment last August. We had some teaching position addition. We also have, as Mr. Bartels alluded to, trouble getting subs. So our staff has been subbing during their prep periods. So we've increased the salaries to cover that cost. And you can see there's also increases in retirement and FICA for that. We also have grant revenue from the ESSER funds that we use to pay teachers for doing virtual teaching. And then we had a retention bonus that's also covered by the ESSER funding. So we go from $2.6 million in the original budget for elementary to $2.9 million, $2,954,000 in the second amendment. Under middle school, same types of things. We had teachers subbing during their prep periods. We have the virtual pay and the retention bonus covered by the ESSER grants. In total, the middle school went up from $2.6 million to just under $2.9 million. One of the lines for that insurance claim is here under capital outlay for the middle school. We had to replace some laptops and cases and bags. That the laptops would no longer work. The cases and bags were just no good after they were soaked in the water. So that cost is covered by insurance claim. Moving to page 2, under high school, we increased from $2.7 million to $2.7 million, almost closer to $2.8 million. Again, that's teachers subbing during their prep periods. It's the virtual pay and retention bonus funded under the ESSER grants. And then we had some staffing changes that reduced our health insurance costs. So when we had staffing changes, someone changed whether they took full family to single or maybe cash in lieu.
Just a reminder that the original budget was an assumption of where everybody was at back in June. This is now a shakeout, if you will, of everybody's now in their current placements, and we now know what their insurance costs are. So all that works out in this amendment, which is typically done in February.
Right. We try to take what our budget assumptions and estimates were back in May and June and see what we've got actually and how the year is progressing with year-to-date numbers. One of the things you'll notice under high school is the capital outlay decreased. That is again ESSER funding, so we had quotes on what the cost for some new technology would be, and the numbers came in, the actual numbers came in less than the quote, so that's why you see a reduction there. Preschool section, as I mentioned, we added a preschool classroom, so you'll see the costs for that preschool classroom increasing preschool from $357,000 to $487,000. We added staff, teacher, and an assistant teacher. We added field trip costs, software costs, food costs, and other supplies for the GSRP classroom. No change in summer school on the bottom of page 2. So moving to page 3, we have special education. And again, we have the same ESSER funding for the virtual instruction and retention bonuses, as well as a new special ed teaching position. And we have just staffing changes and where our needs are. You'll see there's an increase here. You'll see a reduction later under our teacher consultant costs, all related to special ed.
It's important that any open positions that we currently have, we have them already budgeted for. So we're not looking for the dollars that are already in the budget.
Correct. The middle section for Title I and at-risk costs, that decreased about $25,000, and that is generally just because of the way Title 1031 grants are being spent differently this year. If you move on to vocational education, you can see that we went down about $68,000. The reason is we had some staffing changes, so that reduced some of our costs, and we also had a cybersecurity class a year ago in 2021 that we do not have in 21-22. So on the bottom of page 3, you can see our instructional expenses. We started with our estimate at just under 10.3 million, and we're now at over 11 million. Moving on to page 4, we have guidance services. There's not really a lot of adjustment, just some ESSER funding changes. If you look under health services, there's a new line for $3,000 that is for the CARES counseling for students that we now offer. No change under psychological. Similar speech changes as just the pay related to the ESSER. If you go to page 5, social work, one line there that I want to highlight is under purchase services. You can see that increased by about $5,000. That's for increase in our liaison officer cost. And that's because I believe we're using that officer differently than we did in the past. Here we get to teacher consultants, where I mentioned where in special ed we had some increase in costs. This is a decrease, and again, it's a shift in staffing, and it's a shift in where we're using the staffing we have. Under other pupil services, you can see an increase of just under $100,000. And what we did was we took all the Schedule B positions and moved them to the highest cost. So we originally budgeted at what we thought our actual was going to be. We wanted to make sure our budget could absorb when people move columns and get to the highest cost, so we incorporated the highest cost for both Schedule B here and then under athletics.
This has been a long-term goal because this now creates a stability in that budget, that if someone gets a position and they are given step for part of it, that budget assumes that, all right, we don't have to kind of shoot in the dark and think, well, we're bringing in step 1 or step 2 in this schedule. This is the academic side.
If you move to page 6, we start with improvement of instruction. Most of that is funded by Title II. We have added the instructional coach under 221, which is being funded by the ESSER grant. And then we had some adjustments in where we had paid teachers to come in the summertime for PD. We adjusted that instead to some purchase services through PD. So you can see the salaries decreased along with the FICA retirement, and purchase services increased, and supplies for that PD has increased as well. There was no change in the library. Technology, we had a change of about $4,500 in our software costs under purchase services. If you move on to page 7, instructional supervision of instructional staff, then there's an increase there, and that reason for that increase is in our original GSRP budget, we did not allocate any costs for the supervisor, which is Mr. Gibson, the Dean of Students at Lee Elementary. When we submitted our final GSRP budget, which we're actually getting ready to amend again, but we were able to include part of his cost in supervising in the GSRP grant, which takes it out of our general fund, and we can cover with the GSRP grant. And when we do that, it changes the function. So it ends up here as a supervision of instructional staff. So that explains about a $36,000 increase. We also had an increase in purchase services for GSRP early childhood specialists for the additional classroom. Under academic assessment, we just had licensing costs that we added for Title I and Title IV grants. Under Board of Education, we adjusted our audit costs by $2,150. That kind of reflects the GASB changes that they talk about when they come, that they have to do additional work, so they do include that in the cost. Under Executive Administration, toward the bottom of page 7, you can see there's a reduction of about $71,000. When Kimberly left as the administrative assistant, we had some cost savings there, and when we replaced Kimberly, we brought in an HR director, so that is shifted in the budget. So in this section, it's the savings from reducing that administrative assistant cost, and then you'll see a new section where we have added the HR director cost. So if you go to page 8, we have Office of the Principal, and there you can see the reduction in salaries, and that again is for the Dean of Students being allocated to supervision under GSRP. Under the Business Office, not much of a change. Under Other Business Services, we adjusted for the actual insurance premiums for the district level building insurance that we carry through SETSEG. There's also going to be increases under fleet and property casualty under the operations budget. Two items I want to highlight is under legal services. We did increase that budget to reflect where we are year to date on our costs. And we eliminated the state aid interest expense because we did not have to borrow this year for cash flow purposes. So that saved us about $24,000 on our budget.
I just want to be clear, we have not spent $100,000 on legal services. But we wanted to make sure that with this, all the dollars are there. This particular one, and I don't know if they're mentioned yet, the retirement incentive services or payment, a good chunk of that goes away at the end of this budget, and we're making our last payment for a retirement incentive for my individuals.
For, I think, 101. Going on to page 5, we get to the operations and maintenance budget. You can see a shift in salaries. We now have some salaries and health and retirement. Our COVID aids, when we put them into the ESSER 3 budget, it shifted from an instructional side to an operation and maintenance side because they're sanitizing and cleaning for the buildings. So that is shifted then to operations and maintenance, and that is reflected in the salaries, retirement, and FICA shown. There's a significant increase in purchase services. Since we're able to offer free meals to the students, we have a lot more waste that has to be picked up. So we've increased our garbage service, cost of garbage pickup. We've had some annoying little snows where we've had to do salting and snow removal. So we've increased the slight increase in our snow removal budget. Again, this is also where the district property and liability insurance increase is reflected. One of the projects we're doing, we just received bids today for high school caulking, which is a maintenance item, so we cannot charge that to the bond project because it's maintenance, so that is reflected here in purchase services. We opened, 5 bids today? Yes. And they'll be reviewing them and bringing a recommendation to you hopefully in February 28th meeting. And then this is also where the laptops that got wet, but we were able to save them by sending them to a restoration company. Actually, they came and picked them up, took them, dried them out, tested them. Anyway, and that cost is reimbursed by insurance, but that is reflected here as a purchase service. Under supplies, there's a decrease, but that is primarily, again, from the ESSER funding, where a year ago we were buying all kinds of safety equipment, and we're not have to do that this year. What we have plenty in store when we need them. And then there's an increase in the capital outlay budget. We budgeted for a new bucket lift. We also purchased some in-ground benches that you'll see out by the high school. And then we had to purchase some window shades and things like that as we finished our construction, things that you don't think of when you're actually planning for a construction project. And then we did some work on the showcases here in the high school. Under security services, there's a line from it's Title IV grant for walkie-talkies for about $3,000. Under pupil transportation, promised you an increase in salaries and benefits. It's shown there for that. And then we just had to increase our budget for pay increases, as well as, we now have more runs and more staffing needed for those runs. We increased our fleet insurance by about $2,900, and we have some supplies and capital outlay increase. Capital outlay increase about $44,000. One is for the pickup truck, because the old one is in bad shape.
So the items that Tammy's talking about, these are to be coming once the board approves it. We've never been able to do this in previous budgets. So bucket lift, pickup truck, stuff that we have been putting off for years. We are now in a position to make these one-time purchases, and then that will free up the budget before we go to next year.
And it also includes, we purchased a new bus radio system. We had lots of spots where we had no reception to communicate, and I believe that's taking care of that problem. If you continue on to page 10, we have a small increase in purchase services for mostly GSRP, marketing and supplies for as we bring the kids in for Roundup in March.
Second or third?
Thank you. Then this is the new section. It's not really a new section, but it has new salaries and benefits, and that's to reflect the HR position under support services, staff, personnel services, and professional development. So you can see the pay and benefits for the entire year, even though the position is only filled for part of the year, it has the entire year reflected. And then purchase services and supplies are grant-funded PD for administrators and the supplies. They have to be reported separately from improvement of instruction because it's administrators, your principals, your admin team, and teams of students. There's no change in technical support. Under athletics, we did a couple of things. We shifted that coaching pay to the highest step on our pay scale. It reflects the retirement FICA on it. And then for capital outlay, Mr. Reinhardt, we request for some new football helmets. Brian wants to elaborate. We need them. So
There's
that's
some that are beyond air conditioning, and they have to be purchased. And this year we have an anomaly that it is well beyond the budget. So once the budget's approved, then we will begin the approval process of the ordering new football helmets, because they can't be recertified.
Because we didn't know that.
Well, sorry.
That I can't speak to, because I know we are working with the request of the last one, regarding the cost of the teams to create more of a long-term schedule of when we are replacing these and when we can predict what this cost comes in the future. I've never done that.
Because we don't keep track? Are you telling me that our athletic department doesn't keep track of helmets, what the use of them? I find that shocking.
Can't speak to that at the moment, but I can look into it and get the answer to you.
Please.
There's no change under support services other. That's still a 0. So if we go to page 11, under community education service, we added some costs for GSRP engagement nights for both staffing, some software under purchase services, and some supplies. Under custody and care of children, you can see an increase in salary and pay and benefit, FICA and retirement, and that was for I think on the agenda tonight you have bonuses for the staff for the child care stabilization grant. So we've budgeted the expense for that, anticipating, because it's part of the grant that we're required to do part now, by March 1st, we have to pay out some bonuses, and then we've also budgeted some additional bonuses in June. The total grant for that child care stabilization is $126,000, so we still have a lot more to budget. We can spend that money this year and next year. It has to be spent by July 31 of 2023. So we will put together how we want to spend the rest of that and bring that to you in a future budget amendment. Under welfare activities, we just had some change in Title I grant expenditures to reduce that slightly. Under non-public schools, we're required to give services for under Title I and IDEA, so you can see the change in salaries and benefits. And then we had reduction in purchase services. Again, that's a change in what services are being requested from the non-parochial schools or non-public schools. If you go to page 12, we've reached the final page. Again, as Brian mentioned, we're putting money into the budget for some one-time expenses that need to be done. Under capital outlay, under facilities, acquisition and construction improvements, we put in for 3 marquees, we put in for a JV baseball scoreboard, we put in for we did a lot of door replacements, but there are still more to do, so that it puts in for door replacements, and then some graphics that will go up on the walls in the gyms, weight rooms, and help us with the showcases as well here at the high school.
So I just want to speak to this. As we are nearing the end of the bond major project, there were items that were never identified in the original bond scope, or that we have increased the bond scope more than what we originally were doing. For instance, we added air. Air was never part of the original bond when we went to the vote. We had almost a $600,000, $700,000 flooring mitigation that we had to do, because before we put down the new floor, we had to put the surface. So when we made the decision to improve the athletic fields, softball and baseball, the original bond scope did not do what you guys approved several weeks ago. It was not. But by moving the softball field, we have 3 out of the 4 fields that have scoreboards. The junior varsity baseball field does not have a scoreboard, but we did run the electrical and the lines for it. So in this budget, we are adding a line item to be able to put the 4 scoreboards, so they all have it. In this, it also has in here marquees. We ran the wiring for the middle school marquee to be put in front of the building. The high school one is dead, it no longer works. And we ran the wiring for the the elementary to be able to put electronic. This budget that you would approve, the marquees were not part of the original bond. They were kind of on the end of the bond if we had dollars left. We could put those marquees get them going and started. In this budget, we have a new truck. We have a bucket lift because our current one does not operate functional, so we need a scissor lift in order to be able to get into rooms like this. And then we have signing graphics for the gymnasiums and in the new addition. So if you go into those rooms, you'll see right now they've just painted around home of the Blue Devils. We'd be looking at doing new graphics in there, new graphics in the new auxiliary gym, as well as in the new fitness and weight. That was not, it was on the list to do in the bond as we were, money was there, because we've expanded the scope of that bond for the infrastructure. So these would be one-time purchases that would be in this budget, and then when we move the budget ahead next year, these expenses would come out, which would help us with planning for next year's budget. I think I had one.
Yes, I think you did.
Scoreboard, marquees,
Mentioned the door replacements.
Oh, yes, the door that was put, we had a school safety grant that replaced all the high school doors, except the one door, and really, I'll be honest with you, it didn't, because of all the construction, the door that is actually next to the new addition never got replaced. And it needs to be replaced. So we will be building in this budget to replace that door.
Brian, can I ask, are we budgeting for the turf? Have we started that?
That's the next
step.
Yep. So when you look at outgoing transfers in the middle of page 12, there's a number of $272,400. That includes $100,000 for bus replacement, $52,000 for turf replacement, $80,400 for laptop replacements, and $40,000 for computer replacements.
So we are starting to put almost $300,000 away for a future purchase, so we aren't relying on going to the voters to pass a bond to replace it. This is the first time since I've been here, and I can't tell you prior that we're actually in a position to put this money away for the future.
Are we doing the same thing with the counselor position?
Next year, the counselor position, when these one-time expenses start coming out, next year, the counselor position, we have one FTE paid out of grant, 50% will be paid out of general fund, and 50% will remain in the grant. And in the final year, we'll do 75% in general funds, so we'll begin phasing it back into the general fund.
Okay, nice. So we reached the bottom of the expenditures. Our total expenditures from back in June was $17,600,000. In In the first amendment went to $18,336,000, and in our final amendment, it goes to $19,786. Sorry, $19,786,000. So our general fund excess of revenues over expenditures is $52,000. That amount of money would be added to our fund balance and take our fund balance from $1,233,000 to $1,285,000. It's a $72,000 swing from where we were at in our first amendment. And it brings our fund equity percentage of revenues to 6.48%, and our early warning, which is a percentage of non-restricted revenues, to 9.05%.
Which I don't know that we ever thought we would see that kind of number there.
We've moved in the right direction.
It's huge, and it's the work that you guys do, but it's people that have sat at this board table before that got us to this point. We worked hard for years to get here. It's huge.
Do you have any other questions?
So that large packet is all the line items that Tammy just showed every accountant. If you're looking through it and you have a question on any, please call us or send us an email. We're more than happy to sit down if you want to look at it in more detail. But I do want to thank Tammy for all of our work. This is hours and hours. We still have grants that are coming in that we're going to be accounting for in here, and the expenses to follow. So we fully anticipate ending this year expenses are less than revenue. Revenue exceeding expenses.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next item on our agenda is our MIS Board Director's election. You'll notice in your board packet, we have to vote on Region 8. There are 4 candidates. We just need to know, or we need to decide or determine which one we are going to have. Brian's going to do our voting for us. So which one? So I hope you looked at these. Does anybody have a recommendation on any of the 4?
Do you have a recommendation?
I do. My Madeline Hines is my recommendation after reading through the materials that were provided. Anybody else have a recommendation or any thought?
We didn't get anything from her. We got something from Pomponio, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
Eileen.
Am I right? We got something from that person.
I'm good with the incumbent.
The incumbent is different.
Yes, Pomponio is the incumbent.
Yeah, I mean, I would lean towards Pomponio.
Any other thoughts? Like I say, we just need to give Brian our.
I also agree with the incumbent.
Okay.
So later in the evening, someone will have to make a motion with the name of the person, and then we see 4 votes, and then I will cast the ballot on your behalf for whoever you direct.
Okay, thank you. Our next section on our agenda is public comments. At this time, any member of the public may address the board. Please sign in and state your name. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. Are there any comments?
Good evening. A couple months ago, I came up and asked some questions that I never really got answers to, and I just assumed that everything was fine and moving along. And then this weekend, I'm coaching this Saturday, and I get a text message, a screenshot from a community member, from a message from Mrs. Sutton, asking for evidence about me, saying there's an ongoing investigation into me doing some illegal things, and I guess I would just like clarification if that's true or not. I can assure you, 20 years here, I've never done anything illegal. In this matter, the screenshot I have, I'd be glad to share it with all of you. was in regards to me hosting illegal practices on snow days at my home. I can assure you that's not true. I can tell you my home is open to the students and athletes I work with all the time. I've had kids move in with me and my wife, and they were struggling at home, and we fed them and gave them a good environment. I've had kids come over to lift weights and work out in my basement, but I've never had any mandatory practices at my home, especially in a situation when there's bad weather and someone could be harmed. But I do tell the kids, hey, I'll be home. If you want to stop over, work out, that's great. But it was just shocking to me. I'm up here coaching and trying to do good things for the community, and I get this, screenshot. I guess my question is why can't I be notified and have an adult conversation with somebody? Why do I have to get a screenshot from someone who obviously a board member is trying to dig up something that's not there? I would like some answers to that. I'd like to sit down with anyone who would like to have an adult conversation and show some morals and ethics and discuss this situation with me, because again, I feel my character's being attacked. I think it's unethical. I would like to say to Miss Sutton, if she was here, that this isn't Anchor Bay. This is Richmond. Okay, I've known the kids I'm coaching right now since they were little boys. I've known their parents that long. We shop at the same grocery stores together. We eat at the same restaurants. We're friends. We vacation together. I've seen this stuff happen here before, and I'm really concerned about who's giving these people this information. It's so eerily similar, to what happened to my mentor here, George Hamlin. I watched people lie and manipulate and push that man out of this community. And I'm just going to tell you, whoever's telling you people these lies, I'm not going anywhere. I will not be intimidated. Understand me? I will not be intimidated. My family is not leaving here. I'm not leaving. My kids go to school here. They don't go to Anchor Bay. Okay, so whoever is giving you people this information, know that it gets back to me. And I just want, like I said, I just want to have an adult conversation with people that have morals and ethics and clear this up, because I'd like to do a good job here. My evaluations over 20 years have all been great. We've had a successful wrestling program. We've helped change kids' lives. So I don't know why I'm the target. I don't know what the deal is. I would like some answers. If Ms. Michon, you're the leader of this board, if you can do that for me, I'd greatly appreciate that. Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Hi there, Sean Misco, teacher and coach here. First, off topic, but to address the helmet question you had before, Mr. Reinhardt and I can give you all that information. It was a production issue that was unforeseen due to new helmets being purchased and all these other things. But anyway, we had a 4 to 6 year shelf life on about 40 helmets, and they don't make the parts anymore because of production and COVID and everything else. So it was not planned on. But anyway, you can get the rest of the details for that. With that said, to follow up with Coach Day, one of our former student athletes and a Division I wrestler for us wanted to share some information, his opinion on Coach Day, and I believe you have it already. It's a video that he logged.
The video was sent to me.
Okay, so I'm going to yield the rest of my time to get that started.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Luke Davis. I'm a sophomore at Cambridge University. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a 2020 graduate of Richmond High School. I've been there for all 4 years. I came here in 8th grade, and I've been in contact with Brandon Day since I decided to make that switch to Richmond school system. And for what it's worth, I just wanted to give my honest opinion of the guy, because like I said, I've been in contact with him since I was pretty young. So I think one of the most important things to note is that he has one of the highest integrities I've seen throughout any coach, and he's told every single one of our guys, throughout training in high school, that you gotta have a high integrity as a student, as a man, and it goes without saying that he preaches that. He preaches to be good people, to treat everyone with respect. And on top of that, he molds kids. Like I think people have given him a hard time in the past because a lot of people don't see what goes on in wrestling. Not everyone's going to be in there watching what's going on a daily basis, but he molds kids into men, to understand, what they need to do in both the sport of wrestling and, as well as in life too, And I remember when I came, I still don't know what to do as an adult, but I think a lot of my insight, a lot of the things I'm doing with my career and trying to advance myself because of that guy. And to further that, I think even these young kids that are coming in now, they might not have someone in their life to be that inspirational figure. To a lot of kids, like Brandon Day is that guy. It don't matter if the kid is. It's not even just wrestlers either. The guy will get closer. Just walking around like this.
Say yield your time to him. You did? Oh, did you?
School, Richmond High, Richmond Middle School. He's been immensely influential. Even kids who haven't wrestled, he's hey man, how you doing? He wants to get to know kids. It genuinely cares about how well they do in both, a performance setting for sports as well as the classroom. And the guy's always stressed that, performance in the classroom is essential. He's not one of the guys that, is gonna short a kid and give him the easy route, let him compete if he's failed 4 classes, Because he'll gut check you. He's gonna keep you honest and be like, hey man, you gotta do better. And especially in my experience, the standard I hold for myself, it's a lot to do with that guy. It's everyone. He preaches. He holds everyone accountable. He's not gonna pick a favorite. It's not like some other situations that people like to harp on. But he's going to work with kids, and it doesn't matter if you've never. He could be in contact with the best kid on the team or the worst kid, and he's not going to treat a kid any different, because in his mind, he wants the kid who's never made a state tournament to be a state champ, and he'll preach that every day, every single day of the season, and even off season. you know? The guy only wants what's best for, you know, for the kids. And I mean, some people out here might think he's, you know, maniacal for wanting that, but everything he's done, everything he's tried to, you know, push for in, you know, Richmond athletics has been for the kids. And, you know, we thought he was crazy sometimes, you know, but that's just, you know, because you're wrestling. But everything he's done, he wants to help people, you know. Like, he's probably one of the most unselfish dudes you're gonna run into, you know. And I mean, like, we know, like the guy's a good coach. Like, we know he's been, like, you know, approached by other people that, like, hey man, like, you know, you could do, like, to do a lot more than just coach for high school. And I don't care. He wants to further Richmond High School. That's his goal, you know. And he's not doing it to, you know, be what do you call it? He doesn't care about, like, you know, what comes with, like, you know, a job, like working in a certain place. Like, he wants what's best for the kids, you know. And I think that's just his main drive, you know. That goes with every coach that's been in contact with, you know, Richmond wrestling. Like, they've all cared about, you know, how the kids, you know, grow over time, you know. And even hand in hand with John Coker, you know, all them guys, they care about the development of kids. They're not doing it for, you know, money. They're not, you know, they don't want to be bribed. Like, they want kids to, you know, grow and be the best self they can be. And, you know, at the end of the day, even if you know, Timmy doesn't make the state tournament, they won't care. You know, they want to grow kids into men and evolve them to be good people. Because, you know, like, I've seen it a lot of people. There's more to life than, you know, just sports. But in their eyes, they're not. He's never said, like, you need to be this, you know, because, yeah, he's molded you to be that. And at the end of the day, like, everyone in here knows it's not about, you know, winning a state title. I mean, sure, it's great. You win a state title, you win a ring. It's pretty, you know, it's a great feeling. But at the end of the day, it's about, you know, being a man, knowing how to interact with others, you know, treat people. And that's been stressed every day in the room. And I think wrestling teaches you a lot about how to deal with adversity. I mean, I'm just going to be upfront. Like, I broke my hand my senior year. Like, it was a little tough, you know. And if you're going to compete for a dude, like, Brandon Day's the guy. Like, you could have the worst day of your life, and that dude will be in your corner, motivating you to, you know. Get out there, put on that Richmond singlet, and do what you got to do, you know. But I think the point I just want to get across is that, I mean, I've seen a lot of coaches, you know, travel around the tournaments and seeing how they interact with their kids, and, you know, some of it's kind of upsetting, because even at a collegiate level, you see, like, it's obviously a different set of circumstances, you know, as colleges. But it's just, Dave cares about his kids. He wants them to do well, and he'll hang with you. You know, I was never like the best guy in the room. Dave probably knew that, but now like he'll stick with the young guys, and I mean he'll work them. Like, with a lot of things, you ain't gonna get far in life if you don't want to work hard at something. That goes into sports, a job, you know, everything. But he worked with me. He worked with, you know, the guys that are in right now going through it, and never for a moment has he said, "I'm dropping you. You're done." Yeah, you know, he wants what's best for the kids, and more importantly, he wants what's most important for the school. It never at a time of his career is he, it's always Richmond's the best, you know. Like, even if some years, you know, we don't do what we want to, you know, sport-wise, like, in our heads, it's Richmond is the best, you know. And he really pins that pride in your head to have respect for your school, have respect for everything you do. You know, it's like if you're gonna do something, you know, why not do it 100%? And why not, you know, show pride for what you're doing? You know. I just want to thank y'all for your time, and hope you all have a great day. Take care.
Any other public comments?
Good evening, Board. My name is Lori Mesh. Number one, thank you for your time this evening. I am here to speak on behalf of Brandon Day and the wrestling program here. I listened tonight to a lot of presentations from the educators and the administrators here at Richmond Schools. I was pretty impressed. A lot of numbers, a lot of facts, but I did take some notes, and some of the notes I took on the things that this school district is stressing are things that this wrestling program has done in my child's life. Empowering students to be successful in the global community. I haven't taken my son across the globe quite yet. I want to, and I try to, but I have taken him across the state of Michigan, and I've watched him compete as an athlete representing this community in a very wonderful way, and I've seen a lot of proud young men representing our area across the state of Michigan. I listened to them talk about 1, 2, 3 tiers of support, character development, individual support, peer support. All of these things occur in this wrestling program. Rewarding good behavior. Good behavior is rewarded. Social and emotional learning, I see it take place every day. I watch these young men grow. I watched these boys earlier this year where they weren't getting wins, and Coach Day was like, trust the process, stay with it, trust the process. I heard about attendance is linked to behavior. Attendance is linked to behavior. You're right, it is. I'd like to see my kid in school. I'd like to see my kid having good attendance. Attendance is important. Making sure that all of our children stick with it, stay the course. You don't skip. Be there every day. It is directly linked to the behavior. Recognition and celebration at the end of the year. We're getting towards the end of the year of the season. I'm hoping there's going to be a lot of celebration here yet for this group of boys. Preparing students to learn. We are preparing these boys. We're preparing them to be good young men. It is tough. We're teaching them that. Taking a systematic approach. There's a very systematic approach. You put the time in, you do the work. It pays off. Hard work pays off in the end. Behavior contracts. There's behavior contracts. You have to put the time in. You have to be there. You have to be at practice. Everybody's expected to be there. Peer mediation skills, conflict resolution skills. Bring respect, live responsibly, understand others, and engage in learning. All of those things I think I have seen, and I think everyone here in this room has seen through this program and through Coach Day's leadership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin McKiernan, and I'm 23 years a public school teacher and 27 years a coach. I've been a head varsity coach at three different programs in 2 different schools, and I have 5 sons. That means I'm in my 20th year of having a varsity wrestler wrestle for Coach Day. Never has there been practice or any mandatory workout in a situation where it was dangerous for kids to travel to the practice site or the activities for them to perform in were dangerous or harmful. Never had Brandon Day held up practice or workout at camp that wasn't allowed by the school administration. If you look around the state, I wish I had this all wrote down, but I didn't actually know I would have time to share this. But if you're familiar with the elite athletic programs in the area, Marysville had a premier state champion volleyball team for so many years. St. Clair has a cross-country team that fits that mold. Here in Richmond, we have cheer and wrestling and a lot of other great programs, but schools in every town have all these programs and not 1/10 the success. In a lot of situations, it's because of the passion, the dedication, and the effort that a coach will put into that program. They breathe the life into a program like cross country and wrestling. They are very, very difficult. They don't get a lot of attention like maybe a football or a basketball would. It takes an exceptional, passionate, knowledgeable coach to put forth the great effort and time to breathe the life into programs like that, to get the numbers and get them winning and ultimately get them to where they're an elite state champion type program. You can't really do that if you don't take advantage of every possible moment of instruction, do things to help kids stay on weight, extra practices, extra camps, all those things that take away from his time with his family, his time with his lovely wife. That happens all the time, but never once has it happened against the will of the school administration, against the recommendations of the athletic director or the superintendent or principal. And in the 20 years that I've had a boy wrestle for him, that has never happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Preston Trent, teacher and coach here. And I can say a lot of things Luke Davis said and Coach McKernan said, some of the other parents have said about my time as an athlete for Coach Day. To keep it short, I was a kid that showed up to the first day of 7th grade football in khaki shorts. 6 years later, I was signing my letter of intent to wrestle collegiately after winning a team state title and being all state myself. So a lot of the same things Luke and the other parents talked about, I could use my time spending that. But I've also worked with Coach Day for the past 8 years as a coach. We coached freshman football side by side for 4 years. We've coached wrestling together for 8. I like to think of myself as his right hand. We've worked together for 6 years as co-head coaches on the varsity. And what I can say to the concerns by Ms. Sutton, and I wish she was here to hear these. I hope she watches this on Richmond TV. But I think when we plan anything, and he can attest to this, we are overly diligent about what we're allowed to do, whether it be by the state or by the school district. We've had to cancel practices on an hour's notice due to building issues or weather concerns or whatnot. Never once have we scheduled a practice or a scrimmage that goes against any MHSAA regulations or any policies by this school board or our athletic department. The biggest thing was during COVID. I'm not going to point out any certain teams, but I know that there were other teams across the state in all sorts of sports that found ways to practice during shutdowns last year. I know that we as coaches were ultra diligent about what we did. We met with the kids on teams. We gave them technique videos to watch. We gave them workouts to do, but never once did we require a kid to go anywhere when we're under any sort of lockdown or we're told not to by administration. On snow days, we've never told kids, hey, you have to be here. Hey, I want you driving in unsafe conditions to be here. Because we tell the kids, number one, their safeties are concerned, and then their health and safety being those number one and number two concerns there. So I would like to address Ms. Sutton. I guess this would be virtually, but if she has any questions about how we run our practices or our program, she's more than welcome. I have a district email. Coach Day has a district email. We check those daily. We would love to respond to some of those. I keep detailed attendance of every practice we have. And I set up a spreadsheet for the beginning of the year. When we get practices like the snow days that got canceled, she'll see that those things are blank. If she reaches out to us and requests that, we'd be happy to supply that. I keep a digital copy of that on my flash drive. So if she'd really like to know what our program's about, we're wrestling this Wednesday at a very tough regional that I'd like to be at home preparing for. But I felt that my mentor and my coach and my very close friend needed me here more than that. So if she'd like to, I'd like to extend an invitation to her to come watch us wrestle. I know Ms. Telto, you and Chuck follow us around all the time. So it'll be at 5:30 at Yale High School. So should be a good one. Thank you. And again, if she has any concerns, please reach out to me via my district email.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, we are going to move on to our superintendent and legislative update. Mr. Walmsley?
Okay, we'll start with the legislative update. The last 2 weeks, several bills have been passed by the House and have moved on to the Senate. One is the post-secondary information for students. It's passed by the House. It's Bill 4953. It was passed on a 94-to-11 vote. The bill would require the Michigan Department of Education to develop and update information on post-secondary education for students in grades 8 through 12 by August 1st of every year. And the MDE must distribute this to districts. Districts would have to determine how to get this out to their students in that time period. One that we're watching, and I don't understand the purpose of this one, other than the disguise of deferring public funds to charter schools, is the transportation stipend covered by coverage, which is in the Senate committee. Senate Bill 801, they began having hearings that would allow transportation grants to be given for choice students. A district, and district also can be a charter school, can qualify for grants to transport students to their district who do not live in their district. Oftentimes these dollars, this particular one seems to be targeted more for non-public and private schools, charter schools particularly, to allow them to bring in students and allow a transportation stipend to be given for those students. We are watching this one closely because the intended language isn't really for the school choice students that we all are familiar with. House Education is considering changing the role of student teachers to allow them to, who are not yet certified and endorsed, to allow them to teach into a district for up to 1 year to help address the teacher shortage. Currently, student teachers can be hired as substitutes, but not as full-time teachers. House Bill 5685 would allow them to be hired as teachers for up to a year while they are finishing their schooling. The second bill, which we are watching very closely, is House Bill 5686, which would require any changes to the pupil accounting manual that are currently done by the Michigan Department of Education to be done by the legislature before going into effect. This is not a good thing. Currently, the manual any changes to the manual must be made by March 30th to go into effect for the subsequent year. This bill would allow the legislators to be making changes at any time through the school year that we all now have to follow. The Michigan State Police School Safety Grant is now open. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we were awarded a grant. We will again apply for the grant. The grant is focusing on improving safety and security measures for students and staff, particularly doors and what are often called night locks, which are the locks that you put into a door for an active shooter to not be able to get into the room. We will be applying for that grant. It's due at the end of March. Last week, the governor's budget was released. It is the largest single investment in public schools in over 20 years. It is a $435 per pupil increase to the foundation allowance, raising it to $9,135. That is a 5% increase. If you recall, there are many years that we were hoping for a $25 to $50 increase. So that is significant. The dollars are there in the school aid fund. Revenues are higher than expected. It also has a $222 million increase in at-risk funding for Section 31 at-risk, a $150 million increase for special ed funding, which would reimburse our costs moving from 31% to 36%, getting closer to, still yet far away, but yet getting closer to truly funding special ed at its true cost. It has $351 million in mental health support for schools, on-demand school-based health clinics, and more. One of the things they're looking for is that 360 that Mr. Berkmeyer spoke about. As a county, they are looking into it. Richmond is one of the very few districts that went out and began that program prior to the county, so they are looking for our successes in that. It also has $1 billion over 6 years for school infrastructure, creating grants of up to $170 million a year. We're very interested in that one in terms of where they're funding that. This begins the budget process. The House and Senate will now take the budget into hearings and release their budgets within the next couple weeks. This is an election year, so oftentimes they want to get the budget done so they can get out on a campaign trail, so we can hope for that. There is a bill, House Bill 4810 and 4811 from the House Education Committee, which is looking at making changes to the Michigan merit examination at the high school and removing the current requirements for the the essay portion on the SAT for students. This is supported not only by the Michigan Association of School Boards, but also the secondary school administrators, as it will reduce testing time that we take out of our instructional time every year to comply with the test. Most colleges do not use this writing as an entrance exam. They use their own essays specific to the college, so that's one thing that we're looking to reduce it. The other is House Bill 5703, which we are watching, that would require posting of the Constitution and the school code pertaining to parents' rights in the administrative offices and boardrooms of public schools. These are still in committees, but that one we are watching. There's I don't know the motive behind that, but it's there. The House Committee is also looking at approving school changes to school bond loan fund. Luckily, we had ours passed, but basically, House Bill 5666 would create amend the current law that makes the interest rate for bonds be whatever the market rate is at the time. So if your bond market rate is lower, currently the law requires it to be a minimum of 3% plus administrative fees. So if interest rates are lower, it would actually benefit school districts to potentially have a lower interest rate. But we're watching that for future, but it's not current. Just a reminder, I'll go into school news now. This Friday is a PD for staff, so no school for students. It is a virtual PD for staff. Ms. Era talked about the CTE. For the board, you'll be getting invites. We are doing a soft opening for our Blue Devil Cafe on March 17th. The couple weeks before spring break will be for staff at all 3 buildings. Beginning the week we get back from spring break, and a couple weeks after that, we will be doing targeted group invites. And then at the end of April and all of May, we will open the cafe to the public on Thursdays and Fridays from 11 to 12:30 for lunch. We will be taking newspaper ads and marketing this. We have intended to open this cafe since COVID hit. That was the year we were supposed to open it. We have never been able to open it. So with that going forward, the cafe will open second semester every year, with the first semester the students learning the Safe Cert. So look forward to that, and if you can join us for lunch.
Steak and baked potato?
Pardon?
Steak and baked potato?
Close. The menu is created by the students, all the food is made by the students, and they've really done a great job. March 3rd, the high school is conducting a district-wide fundraiser for the Oxford community. You see up here on the table here, their shirts they are selling. 100% of the donations will be going towards the Oxford community. Chef Garan, and our culinary students will be conducting a bake sale that night of stuff they've made. It is during a basketball game between Richmond and Armada. Mrs. Shack is working in conjunction with the band from Armada to play the Oxford Fight Song at halftime. Mrs. Smallwood and Dr. Ladd are working with their student government and the Armada government. They are doing a Penny Wars rivalry. Whichever school raises the most money, the principal of the losing school will have to wear the uniform, the costume, or the mascot. So we're hoping that the Armada principal will wear the Blue Devil mascot very soon. Mrs. Kaganak reported several Wayne State University Tri-County winners. Maddie Foss, Aiden Karlowski won 2 awards for their artwork. Shannon Hope, Annabelle Loftus, all won awards. These students would automatically receive a $1,000 scholarship for each selected piece of artwork, and that is currently on display at Wayne State University upon their enrollment in the university. It's on display if you're downtown Detroit at the Wayne State Art Gallery. There's a reception that is, the opening reception is February 24th. If anybody's interested, I can get you more information. Scholastic winners were announced. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 winners, multiple pieces of winners. These are all, the gold key winners are going on to nationally compete. Mrs. Kaganak will be sharing the artwork soon on Facebook to publish those students. This was a tough year because it started late because of the various schools and where they were with COVID. Participation was down, but for Richmond, 16 of the 58 individual art pieces that were submitted were selected. That's a large percentage, so we are competing with schools all over the region. So hats off to Mrs. Kaganak and the art students. 3 bowlers on January 25th, Emma Milbrand, Marissa Germain, and right the other name, I forgot. I just have the last name, Wagner. I'm drawing a blank on the first name. I apologize, I don't get the name. I feel so bad. Finished in the top 8 in the BWAC girls bowlers. This is the first time in Richmond has had 3 of the top 8 positions in the conference.
Power to the women.
Congratulations to the high school bowling team and Coach Germain. As Mrs. Era announced, March 2nd will be the preschool roundup for the class of 2036 and 2037. So come on, 3 and 4-year-olds, we are looking forward to you. On March 3rd, which is the Thursday, we will have kindergarten roundup for the incoming class of 2035. Both nights will feature a dinner for students registering for preschool and kindergarten. In addition, we have t-shirts for future Blue Devils joining the Richmond family. Lee is doing a March's Reading Month theme, as Mrs. Manguni had mentioned. If you can fit it in your schedule, we'd love to have you read to the students in the classroom. The food service director, Mrs. Guinea, reports that the district has served 11,703 fresh Michigan-grown fruits and vegetables. We have done a task, we've really been focusing on trying to promote locally grown fruits and vegetables, in this particular case fruits, that are grown right here in Michigan, and so we have increased that number this year tremendously. Cindy Arf and Kimberly Ellis have both passed their 10-hour safe serve training, so congratulations to them. That is not an easy task. We're waiting for the results for Kelly Kincaid. And finally, she probably doesn't like that I'm going to do this, I would like to congratulate Miss Ara on her engagement to be married. We couldn't be happier for you and Nick. And I feel horrible because every day I walk into her office and look at her hand and see if she got the ring over the weekend. I did not do it today. And I waited probably 3 hours, 4 hours before I finally realized she has engagement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, items of interest from the board. Kyle, anything?
I got nothing today.
Angela?
I'm all set, thank you.
Sherry?
Nothing, thank you.
Margaret?
Just want to share, Brian has stuff at table here. Richmond Education Foundation is doing a fundraiser on April 30th at Mtss, a night at the races. Those of you that might have attended the event that wrestling, cross-country, wrestling, track, and football, was that right? Cross-country, I was right when I said cross-country. Sorry, Mr. Berg. It's a fundraiser, it's a simulated horse racing event. It is a ton of fun. Just as a side note that Kyle Simmons, this is his business and he is the horse race announcer. So if you would like to come out and support the Richmond Education Foundation on April 30th, you can reach out to myself or Mr. Walmsley. But please do, it's a lot of fun. We can raise money for our students and our teachers. And I just want to, on a completely different note, I am thoroughly embarrassed that Brandon Day had to come to this meeting another time to defend his character and the job that he does for this district because of something that a member of this Board of Education is doing. And at some point, we have to take a stand as a board. Enough's enough. It was Brandon, it was Josh Presnell. Who's next? What other staff member, because we have someone on our board who doesn't understand what their job is or doesn't even know what's going on. So let's try and do something about it, Mrs. Michelle, and the rest of the board.
I have a rebuttal to that.
Go ahead.
First off, there's a process. When we get a complaint from a parent or from someone from the community or a concern, we email Mr. Walmsley. So I know you've asked for a precedent for them to call you. We don't work that way because that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to pass it to Mr. Walmsley and he needs to investigate. I have just gotten back in town. I've been gone for a month, but what I had heard from another board member that we talked, that an email was sent to Mr. Walmsley to ask to check into this because Mrs. Sutton had heard that this was going on. And that would be our path. That would be our normal channel. Now, I don't know anything beyond that. And we will investigate, and I will talk with Mr. Walmsley, and we will get back with you.
Okay. Except it was made very clear that the board member sought out information, text messaging. That's not our path.
Well, I don't know that.
That's not. Mr. Day said it in his statement.
Well, I know he did.
Maybe ask him for,
I know we check into it, Margaret.
I understand. I'm saying check into it because enough's enough. This is not how we operate. This is not how we treat employees.
Okay, well, if employees come to us and make a complaint, our job is to refer it to Mr. Walmsley to investigate.
That is correct.
That is our process.
That is correct.
I just want to make sure that's clear too.
That is correct.
Okay. I have no other items of interest. We will move on to our action items. I need a motion for the approval of a school bus purchase.
I move to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the purchase of one school bus for Midwest Transit for a total not to exceed $100,084 as outlined in the attached documentation, for which funding transferred from the fiscal year 2022 general fund to the non-bond capital projects fund is authorized.
Do I have a, thank you. Any discussion?
Actually, can I correct the dollar amount?
Yes.
Sure.
If you look at the last page, I think it's a 4-page document that has the specifications of the new bus. The top number is the base price. That is what's in this motion.
Right.
So it should be the 108 number?
Yes, 108,600.
Okay. I amend my motion to be, the amount to be not to exceed $108,634.
And I support that amendment.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, this is a roll call vote. Margaret?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Angela? Aye. Daniel's not here. Sherry?
Aye.
And Devashan, aye. Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for a motion for the approval of a child care stabilization fund bonuses.
I move to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve child care stabilization fund bonuses to be paid to full-time and part-time equivalent child care employees on February 25th, 2022, June 25th, 2022, January 25th, 2003, and June 25th, 2023, as outlined in the attached documentation.
Do I have support? Support. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion for the authorization of the superintendent to submit MASB Board of Director ballot on behalf of us.
I motion to authorize our superintendent to submit the name of Darlene Pomponio from Southgate Community Schools, the incumbent for the Michigan Association of School Boards Region 8 Board of Directors seat.
Do I have a support?
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion for the approval of a board resolution for student 021422.
I motion that following a closed session student discipline hearing, the board votes to uphold the superintendent's decision for student 021422-A, consistent with the attached resolution.
Do I have support? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then finally, I'm going to ask, since Bridget has resigned, our secretary position is open. Is anyone interested in the secretarial position of the board?
I'd like to nominate Sherry Zuby.
Sherry, are you in agreement?
Yes.
Any other nominations? Be there no other nominations? I'm looking for a motion.
No, you don't need a motion. You have a nomination. And there's no other.
Oh, I'm following Brian on my talk. So we don't need to go any further?
We have a nomination. They accepted it. We vote on the nomination.
Okay, so I'm voting for Sherry Zuby to be secretary. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourning at 10:17.